Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I'll Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And today is November 14th, 2024. I had to think about it. I thought, we've got a lot going on. We've been talking about our game plan of how we're going to deal with the fallout of the election episode-wise here on the show, especially with the holidays coming up. So if things feel a little uneven, please just bear with us. We're people too.
Surprise.
Yeah, which speaking of, I was just curious about this because content warning, we are talking about the election a little bit, but not really. Oh, we're mostly talking about why do you cry when people ask if you're okay. And I guess I was telling Samantha, I can always tell when I wrote an outline and I was thinking about something very specific and maybe having some emotions about it. And I can tell I was when I did this one. But it's not some kind of takedown in any way. I feel like I have to, sometimes I'm worried people who know me listen to this and think I'm talking directly to them.
Oh no.
And I'm not. And I feel like a lot of times the argument has been used about this, especially after an election, especially after Trump wins an election, that, you're all being snowflakes, even though I would argue it's the other side who's perhaps the biggest snowflakes who can't handle election results without violence. But anyway, I think it makes sense that when people ask if you're okay, you cry. And that was something that I've always kind of been that way. But after the election, I noticed it a lot, where I'd be like, wow, today you've gone a whole day without crying. And then someone would text me, they're like, are you okay? Like, no.
Oh.
Yeah, so I've always been this way. I've just noticed it a lot lately. It has gotten better for me specifically as time has gone on. But it'll still, especially if I'm tired. If I am tired, oh no. But there are a lot of reasons why this might be. One is a constant reopening or reminding of a wound if you feel compelled to answer honestly. And I know you and I have talked about this before, Samantha, but sometimes we've given honest answers to that question when it's clear they just wanted the yes, I'm fine.
They wanted the not real answer.
Exactly. But sometimes I've done that without even meaning to do it. It just happens. And I was thinking about this too, interestingly and kind of sadly. But one of the reasons you came onto this show was I think you met me at a time in my life after Trump was elected. And I just couldn't, yes, I'm fine was much harder for me to pull off. And so I was just like, nope. And here's why. And that led to our miniseries on trauma. And here you are.
We should redo that one again.
Oh, as a list, as a playlist. Yeah. It's like, oof.
We're back.
Yep. There's also another reason you might break down when people ask if you're okay is a hesitation to admit that you're not. And when you're confronted with that realization of, oh, I'm not, you might break down. This one's big for me. Fear it'll be hard to stop once you do. Or fear that you will break down at all. But that idea of, oh, if I answer this is going to start a chain reaction. I don't know when I'm going to be able to stop. So I was invited to last weekend, the weekend after the election, I did have a bunch of wonderful friends reaching out, and I was invited to kind of like a soup getaway. So many people asked me to get soup. I love that. I've got a soup name for myself. And I was very sick, like physically very sick. And I didn't go. But I was also thinking, like, I'm afraid what will happen if we start talking about it. And I'm afraid, like, I'll just start crying and I won't stop. And I don't like doing that. And I've tried to examine, like, why, but I think there's a lot to unpack there. But I don't like doing that. It feels out of control. I think that's one of the reasons, like, I love crying at The Last of Us too, is I know when I'm going to cry. Like, I know I can anticipate it. But I don't like the kind of uncontrolled, oh God, I don't know when this is going to stop. Like, I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't like that feeling. And I didn't. I was scared of what would happen. And they would have been, they're my friends and they would have supported me and it would have been fine. But it was just kind of a me thing. Also, sometimes someone legitimizing your feelings can just make you cry. So if someone's like genuinely asking you, like, are you okay? With probably the understanding you're not, that can get you to start crying. Not used to being people asking or being nice to you or feeling grateful someone cares enough to ask, that can make you cry. And I've definitely experienced that, where like the smallest act of kindness and I'm like, oh my God, they care about me. It's one of the reasons I keep so many of things people give me, like notes. It's like, oh, they care. I have this like physical evidence. Also, perhaps obviously, it could be that you are anxious or depressed. And maybe this is just one thing that is setting you off. Maybe it's a bunch of other stuff. Obviously too, like all of that can interact. Multiple of those things can be happening at the same time. I did find something when I was researching this called highly sensitive people, or HSPs. According to some sources, 1 in 5 people are estimated to be HSPs over all genders. And this is essentially believed to be people who respond and process stimuli more deeply. And it is believed to be genetic. But HSPs cry more than non-HSPs. There have been studies into the brains in HSP people that show that they have higher brain activity when looking at people or things that they cared about. Things like depression and anxiety are worsened. I'm not saying I think I have that. I just ran into it when I was researching this. I feel things deeply, but I don't know enough about this to know if that's what I got going on. Things like race and trauma are a factor here too, and like how you're trying to monitor whether you cry or don't cry. So that's something else. There's also emotional monitoring, which is the flip side. If you find yourself constantly asking if someone is okay. This is pretty common with people who are marginalized and or have trauma. It's more of like a trauma response to scam moods and feel safe. My dad was like this, but he did not want the real answer to the question. He wanted you to say, yes, I am fine, I'm happy. But he had his own trauma. And so as I've gotten older, I come to understand that more. So some of the like things to look out for if you're like, oh no, well, is that me? Constantly asking somebody if they're okay or if they're upset, even when they say they're not. Having extreme anxiety when a close friend or partner is upset or hurting. A constant focus on the mood shifts of others. Feeling like your role is to cheer someone up at all times. Chronic apologizing. Replaying social interactions over and over mentally. The interesting thing is, I wouldn't say I do this, but then I was reading this and I was like, oh no, it's like half and half. I do emotionally monitor. I think a lot of us do, because especially if you got trauma, you're like, how is it? But I wouldn't have said like, I don't know. I'm going to have to think about this. I'm going to have to think about it. But, you know, there are a couple of things that you can do if you're frustrated by the fact that for me, I get frustrated that it feels like I'm fine. And then the question and I'm just crying. It's annoying. You can work on a couple of, especially if you have something like anxiety or depression or whatever, just work on dealing with the heart of what it is. You can also, like Samantha and I maybe have not done in the past, you can assess the truth of the question. Like, are they actually asking? Some people don't want the answer. It's just a polite thing we do. A lot of us do it. That's okay. It can be very shocking when you're just like, hey, how are you? And somebody starts crying. You know, then hopefully I hope you show some compassion. But it can be very like, whoa, I was not expecting that.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever done that, but I've had that done to me. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. I'm going to need about 15 minutes with you. Let's go sit down.
Yeah, let's go. Okay.
Typically is what happens. I swear to God. I've had several people. I'm like, all right, well, you want to go sit over here? I'm thinking specifically like brewery times where people would I'd be like, hey, how's it going? And then I'd ask one question that just was like something that you had told me previously that seemed so nonchalant. And all of a sudden that broke something. And I was like, oh no, I'm so sorry. Oh no.
Yeah.
That's where I feel like I'm too intense. But yeah.
I've thought about that with separate but related, but I've thought about this with times where guys have asked me out after I showed like the barest human interaction of like, oh, hey, what do you do? She's in love. Like, I don't know. Something about,
That's
I would interpret it as like a kindness, and I might, if I'm in a bad place, I might start crying. Whereas I feel like some men in my life have interpreted it as, interest.
Yeah.
Or I have started crying and guys have used that as like, oh, she's being emotionally open with me. I can ask her out.
Well, it's that conversation about him being able to be a protector.
Yeah.
And we kind of delved into it in like the manosphere, but it's a really like gendered response for sure.
Yeah. Yep. Especially given some comments about protecting women, whether they want it or not.
Right. Or not, because they don't deserve it.
Yeah. God. Oh, God.
Anyway.
Again, we laugh because we're sad.
This is my response.
Yeah. But yeah, I think probably if it's something you're worried about, a lot of the sources I said did suggest therapy, or identifying where it's coming from, where that reaction is coming from and what it is. I feel, like I said, I've had this throughout my life, and I feel pretty like I know what it is, and I especially know what it is right now. So I'm not worried about it. I was just curious to look into it, because I think it's a pretty natural thing if you've got any kind of upset in your life.
Right. And also, like, your solution right now is isolation, because you know that's how you respond.
Yeah. I got my solutions. Some of them are better than others.
But you're monitoring. There you go.
I've got wonderful people in my life checking in with me, so it's all good. Well, listeners, if you have any thoughts about this or any other information, because this was a pretty quick research Monday Mini. So if you have any thoughts or any other resources or anything, please write in and let us know. You can email us at stephaniemomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast, or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff I Never Told You. We're also on YouTube. We have a TeePublic store, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.